Among the many wonders of the world is the phenomenon of cutting through sheer solid natural rock and creating remarkable artistic structures and sculptures. Among the most exciting examples of human craftsmanship on natural formations are the Ellora cave temples in Maharashtra. They are the earliest cave temples, along with other Buddhist cave shrines and monasteries that dot the western Deccan. Verul, now known as Ellora, is located nearly 30 kilometers away from the city of Aurangabad in Maharashtra. The caves were excavated and carved out of the vertical basalt face of the Charanandri hills. Near the cave, numbered 32, we can still see the channels through which the volcanic lava once flowed. These basalt rocks are ideal material for the kind of architecture and craftsmanship that the Ellora represents, enabling the craftsmen to express their vision and art on rock as a permanent memorial. This area is also noted for its antiquity, and archaeologists have found evidence to show that it was inhabited 20,000 years ago. In the early centuries of the Christian era, the Satavahana dynasty ruled the area. During this time, Ellora became an important center. Besides support from traders and merchants, religious centers like Ellora also received royal patronage. Though most of the inscriptions commemorating this have faded with time, an inscription on the back wall of the front mandap of cave number 15 remembers the patronage of Rashtrakuta Danti Durga, who ruled from 753 to 757 AD. Again, in cave number 16, there is an inscription that attributes the famous Kailash Temple to Krishna I, who was Danti Durga's uncle and successor. Ellora goes beyond a chronological categorization. It can also be classified in terms of religion. Unlike Ajinta, Ellora does not confine itself to Buddhist caves alone. It has Hindu and Jain temples as well. The Buddhist caves and a majority of the Hindu caves are from the Rashtrakuta times. The Jain caves came later, during the period of the Western Chalukyas and the Yadavas of Deogiri. Thus, we find here the greatest single confluence of religions, indicating religious tolerance and the solidarity of different faiths during these times. Having remained open to the world throughout its existence, the Ellora caves attracted a regular stream of pilgrims, foreign visitors, travelers, and royal personages. There are innumerable recorded accounts that speak of these visits. The Ellora caves were first excavated during the Kalichari era in the 6th century AD, beginning with cave number 29, the Dumarlene cave. This was followed by cave number 10, or the Vishwakarma cave, and the Dotal and Teental caves, which are numbered 11 and 12. These were created during the Chalukya period that lasted from the 7th century to the early 8th century. And finally came cave number 15, or the Inscription cave, during the Rashtrakuta period that lasted through the 8th, 9th and 10th centuries. The Hindu or Brahmanical temples dominate Ellora. They are 17 in number, while there are 12 Buddhist and 5 Jain shrines each, thus making up a total of 34 temples. The Buddhist temples came first, in the beginning of the 5th century AD, followed by the Hindu temples. Located near the Girija river, Ellora soon became a Hindu pilgrimage center. After that came the 4 Jain shrines. As in the earlier Buddhist temples, the Ellora caves too were obviously worked upon by craftsmen who attempted to recreate the visual and textural effects of woodwork. Though the paintings at Ellora have faded away and are lost to posterity, about 5 of its caves have nurtured its wall paintings. The relationship between art, religion and commerce comes alive in the caves at Ellora. As the maritime trade between Rome and Southeast Asia peaked, it was reflected on rock, with magnificent arches and pillars and the detailed facades of temples. The Buddhist monks often traveled along the trade routes in the company of traders who commissioned work on the temples. As time passed, the architecture of these caves grew progressively more sophisticated. The high point of this sophistication can be found in the monolithic Hindu temple of Kailash at Ellora. Buddhist caves. Let's begin with cave number 1. This is a vihara or residential quarters with 4 cells cut into the side walls for monks to stay around a square assembly hall. This cave is devoid of any carvings, pillars or sculptures. Adjoining it is cave number 2, which is a worship hall and is accessed by a flight of stairs. In a recess in its outer veranda, we find images of Panchika, the god of wealth, and Hariti, the goddess of prosperity. At the entrance stand Dwarapalas or guards, flanked by windows. The hall is supported by 12 pillars, some of which are decorated with motifs of pots and foliage. A gallery runs down each side. In the center of the back wall is a seated Buddha 3 meters high and 2 standing Buddhas. Along each of these side walls are 5 Buddhas accompanied by Bodhisattvas and Apsaras, the celestial nymphs. Cave 3 is similar with a square central chamber. The Buddha sits on a lotus at the far end. Around the walls are 12 meditation cells. The 2-storied cave number 4 is now virtually in ruins. There is a Buddha sitting under the peepal tree and another in a shrine. This second one is unfinished. Motifs of pots and foliage adorn the columns of the hall. Cave number 5 is different. Excavated at a higher level, it is the largest of the single-storied caves and contains a spacious hall divided into 3 aisles. Porches in the middle of the side walls hold small cells on either side. Intricately wrought foliage surround columns that are decorated with medallions and other motifs. Benches have been carved out of the floor. This probably means that the cave was used as a dining hall. The entrance to the central shrine is carved with bodhisattvas in intricate headgear and jewelry. There is a seated Buddha, but he sits on a chair or stool rather than cross-legged on the floor as usual. Cave number 6 contains many elaborately done sculptures. The facade contains an unusual scene of the goddess Tara rescuing devotees from a snake, a sword, an elephant, fire, and a shipwreck. Number 7 is a simple hall with 4 plain figures. Cave number 8, however, stands out because it is the only shrine in Ellora where the sanctum is away from the rear wall, with a circular passage running around it. This passage also contains cells. Cave 9 has an open terrace with a balcony and a shrine. Cave 10 is a chaitya or prayer hall and is named after Vishwakarma, the architect of the gods. This cave is said to mark the culmination of chaitya architecture in India. The prayer hall is situated below the monks' residential quarters. The hall has porticos on 3 sides, raised on the basement, carved with animals. A stupa here has a large seated Buddha figure accompanied by flying attendants and bodhisattvas. A flight of steps in the veranda leads to the upper gallery. Here we find chaitya window motifs, flying celestials, and bodhisattvas with female attendants. The decorated facade of this cave is so finely finished that it gives the impression of woodwork. And then come the 8th century caves, numbered 11 and 12. The former is 3-storied and has a basement. It contains lodgings for monks and hostels for travelers on the upper level and a shrine below. Images of Durga and Ganesh suggest that the cave was later used by Hindus. Cave number 12 is the last of the Buddhist caves and contains cells for sleeping. However, the interesting feature here is the series of 7 Buddhas, pointing to the belief that the Buddha reincarnates on earth once in 5,000 years and has already been born 7 times. Hindu caves. Caves 13 to 29 are Hindu temples. Constructed between 600 and 875 AD, they are replete with images of gods and goddesses, apsaras and tree nymphs, motifs of animals, plants and trees. Their workmanship is so detailed and complex that it must have taken centuries for their planning and execution. The high point of the Hindu temples, however, is undoubtedly cave number 16, the Kailash Temple. It is dedicated to Lord Shiva, but pays homage to other gods as well. It is the largest monolithic structure in the world. Carved out of a single rock, it is double the size of the Greek Parthenon. There are columned galleries, 3 stories high, large sculpted panels, and alcoves containing enormous sculptures. Within the courtyard, we find 2 large structures, an image of Nandi, the sacred bull of Shiva, and the main Shiva shrine which it faces are both about 7 meters high and cover 2 stories. A rock bridge connects the Nandi platform with the porch of the temple. The shrine itself has pillars, windows, inner and outer rooms, and congregation halls with an enormous Shiva lingam as its core. Images include carved deities and erotically conjoined couples. Though this is a Shiva temple, it includes Vaishnavite deities as well. A remarkable feature of this temple is a magnificent sculpture of Ravana attempting to lift Mount Kailash, the abode of Lord Shiva, thus earning the temple its name. 200,000 tons of rock were sculpted out to create the Kailash Temple, which took 100 years to complete. Other notable Hindu caves include cave number 15, the Dashavatara temple, which depicts the 10 incarnations of Vishnu; cave number 21, the Rameshwara temple, which has figurines of river goddesses at the entrance; and cave number 29, the Dumarlene cave, whose design is similar to the Elephanta caves near Mumbai. Jain caves. The 5 Jain caves were built between 800 and 1000 AD. They are massive and well proportioned, and they mark the final phase of activity in Ellora. The series of Jain caves at Ellora are amongst the best examples of Jain monuments in Maharashtra. These caves contain intricately carved decorative pillar motifs that speak volumes of the richness and skill of the cave architects. Cave number 30, dating back to the early part of the 9th century, was referred to as the Chota Kailash. It was intended to be a small-scale replica of the Kailash Temple, but it was never completed. The columned shrine has 22 Tirthankaras with Mahavir in the sanctum. Built around the same time, cave number 32 was known as Indra Saba. It is considered the finest of the Jain temples here and is dedicated to Mahavir. A simple gateway leads into an open courtyard. In the middle of this stands the shrine. Carved elephants, lions and Tirthankaras fill the walls. The lower wall is incomplete, but the upper one contains carvings of Ambika and Mahavir, flanked by Tirthankaras. The ceiling is richly carved with a massive lotus at the center, while painted figures pass among the clouds. On the whole, these temples depict facets of Jain philosophy and teachings and also reflect the severe asceticism of the faith. Though not as large as the other caves, The Jain caves are repositories of very detailed works of art, and many of them had beautifully painted ceilings and intricately carved pillars, some of which are still visible. Thus, besides being a coming together of three great religions in a single landmark location, Ellora is also a memorial to the stunning creative beauty that was possible so many centuries ago.